Hi everybody, welcome to Archimarathon. Kevin, Andrew. We've had a bunch of questions from people saying, how does Kev organise his trips? And with one person saying, oh, it's all too expensive and nobody's got enough time. Haha! That's what Archimarathon's all about, is efficiency.
Time is a huge factor, so that's why you need to plan the shit out of it.
Yeah.
If you want to go get the most out of money and time.
Today we're going to answer a few of your... No, we're not.
And if you're new to the channel, we usually talk about architecture, travel, and other fun bits.
Alright, so here is Kevin Huey's top 9, couldn't think of a 10th one, top 9 architecture travel related rules. Rule 1. So, Kev, I get on a plane and I go, bugger it, I'm going to Amsterdam. And I just go there and then I jump in a hotel and go, shit, now what do I see? And get on Arc Daily, have a look. And then every time I come back and somebody says to me, most likely you, oh, did you see that thing? What thing? It was like 2 blocks from your hotel. It's like, no, why did that happen to me?
Well, first of all, it's to find a list first, or what is available. And the problem with travel, architecture travel, is not so much the amount of stuff available to see, it's actually choosing what to see.
Yeah.
You know, if you've got a whole, you've been there, right? You call up an architectural list. Someone gives you a list of stuff, and you've got pins all over the map. So, okay, where do you start? What do you choose to see?
Where do you prioritise your time? Because it is pretty heartbreaking when you make a trip somewhere and it just wasn't worth it.
Often I will start with something like the Phaidon atlases. You know, those big ass books. They're so heavy. There are 3 of them actually. 2 of them actually come up with a smaller version, which is supposedly a travel version. Some of them have addresses, which helps. The 3rd one is the orange one, talks about a lot of old modernist works, things you probably didn't even know existed. So that's also quite handy. You know, the problem with that is whether they still exist or whether you can still access them. The other one would be something like El Croquis, the Spanish publication, and the really good documents like GA documents from Japan, as well as even Detail magazine. Because they have really good detailed description and drawings of the building. So where you can actually get a sense of how good the project is, how much depth there is. Or is it just a fancy facade, or does it have a lot more going for it? And then, something like Arc Daily, it's easy. You go in there and you type in the city, come up with a list, a lot of things, a lot of anything and everything that's recent. Arc Daily is good because they do have drawings. Social media has been really handy. There are some really good accounts with really good information. A lot of things I actually learned from a few people that I didn't know existed. You might even contact them, and sometimes people are extremely generous, giving local knowledge to projects.
Rule 2. Why do we pick these certain projects?
Yeah. So for me, I choose them because I think there's something to learn from them. Having taught for many years, you see there's certain responses that people do, and you go, okay, I'm going to find an example of that so that I know what's it like to be in a space like that. And I think one of the key thing is to work out for yourself, what are your prejudices and preferences? Because everyone will be different. Traveling with a companion is that you have this discussion about what you like and why you like certain things, and it might be different from someone else's.
Yeah.
That's part of the enriching experience. Putting a time value onto the projects to think, okay, is it something that you just happen to walk by anyway because you worked out the location and it's just something you're going to walk past? Is it something that's going to be 5, 10, 20 minute thing, or is it something that you think it's going to be worth a good couple of hours, if not longer? Or it will take an hour or 2 hours or more, a whole day to get there.
Yeah, that's what I actually like about your tours is it's like a video game. You've got your bosses, you've got to go and you've got to get to the boss to fight the boss. But if there's time, you can go do these side missions. If we've got time, we can actually go and duck in and look at this particular thing. It's only worth looking at the front facade, or something like that. It's actually really fun. That's one of the things I really love about this stuff is just because you're organising it really tightly doesn't mean it's a known quantity. You can find these serendipitous little gems along the way, and you always do actually. That's from my experience. You always find these great little side missions. Rule 3.
So the research now leads into working out where the hell these projects are. It's a bit hard. Sometimes, as I said, the Phaidon little book, some of them gives you an address, but most don't. And ArcDaily they don't give you an address. They just give you the city. There's a pin, but the pin is just the city, so you'll never find it. So you do need to go and read the description. Sometimes it's not the city, but it's in some kind of suburb, and give you a name. But that's because a lot of these interesting projects are far-flung outside the city.
Yeah.
You might be able to Google map it. You literally type in the name of it. You'll find it.
That's what I do most of the time with ArcDaily. So
Yeah.
I just put it in Google Maps.
Yeah, sometimes they're not, the name of it is not the name as published.
Yes.
A
Sometimes.
lot of times. So that's where the drawings comes in handy. You do look at the site context drawings or photos and you're trying to work out where it is.
So you do a bit of detective work.
Yeah, there's a lot of Google Earth work. Literally, sometimes you have to look at the context map and try to map it to the urban condition. And then I'll pin them on the Google Maps and then work out how do you get there, which is so much easier now with Google Maps and
It's
everything.
all so much easier. Like, you can do most of this on Google Maps now. Like my last trip, that's exactly what I did. I did a word search and I found it and I pinned it and then I'd put all this information into it and then I'd just say, send me to that place at this time, and it tells you which train to catch.
Have you been somewhere where you, not just the fact that you know it's just around the corner, but also just to get there, it took like, hours to get there and suddenly realize it's closed? Or that you go, no, you need to have a booking beforehand to get access to it.
Yeah, stuff like that, especially if you live in the Southern Hemisphere, is really heartbreaking. I spent 20 hours flying here, I spent 3 hours on a train, and you're not going to let me in? And guess whose fault it is?
Your own.
Yeah. Rule 4,
Timing.
timing. In more ways than one. What time of year? And also what time of day?
Yeah, on the documents, which we'll talk about later, I usually put in every day, every city we're in, I put in the sunrise, sunset times.
Yep.
And also study the projects to see which way does it face north, where is it? Orientation. And
People always ask me with my designs, where do you start? And I always say, orientation. Or they think I start with some wacky idea. No, where's the sun? You
yeah.
should do the same thing when you go and research buildings.
And that's just in general, whether it's you're just learning from it. If you don't go on a trip, you still learn all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, finding that out and think, for example, an Alvarado library, or church, you definitely want to see it in daylight with the sun coming in. And it's a little bit hard in Scandinavia in wintertime when the sun rises at 10:30 and sets at 1, 2.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you also know that there may be a time that changes over. So they're building that might glow at night, or the fact that, okay, half the year it's going to be pretty dark. So maybe it is actually worth seeing it also in the dark to see, well, this is what people experience from the outside and from the inside.
Set up a camera and the loudest child in all of Fitzroy turns up to start screaming. Listen to her happiness. I hate it. Stop being so freaking happy.
Oh, look at this guy.
He's Parallon, he's doing the work.
Yeah. It's a
Sorry,
footy
there's all
player.
these, behind you, there's all these people playing football and getting fit and stuff like that. While we drink beer. Losers. I'm not sure which one's the loser. Rule 5. Trains, planes, don't do automobiles.
Well, sometimes it's just so hard to get there. It's easier to jump. It's cheaper to jump in an Uber with a group of people. Again, you need to make the assessment. Well, part of the research first is to work out, are there local transport nearby? I prefer trains personally, partly because you're less of a dick trying to buy a ticket, whereas on a bus, you get on a bus, you're trying to buy in whatever language and they look at you weird and everyone's disgruntled going, just get on and just move on. Yeah. Especially when you got a larger group of like bunch of tourists. Oh God, everyone's just so angry. Yeah. Even though the bus is interesting experience, but
Yeah.
try to avoid. I try to avoid the bus, and I don't like buses. I don't like being stuck. So when I look at trains and buses that particular day, I'll look at the schedule. I'll write down what is the realistic time I will get up and go on this, like the earliest, and I'll write down the departure and arrival time.
It's a dude on a skateboard being towed away by a dog. The dog's very, very happy.
So I write down the departure and arrival times, but also work out how many are there after. So maybe, the next 3. I write them down so that I know how long it takes to get there and how frequent they are. And also then I think, well, how long I'm going to spend at that particular place, how much time you're going to spend there, how much time you're going to take to get back, and then I look at the return, and how, again, same thing, put in different times. Sometimes you do need to book ahead and you commit though, so you just got to bite the bullet and go, right, that time, book.
So much of the good stuff is out of the centre, which is the reason to do it. It's great fun, but that often means you've got less transport options and less frequency. And I remember being in Clippan, that amazing church, and we had to get out of that church. We had to hit that train because there just were very few going through that station.
And it was delayed.
Yeah, that was freezing. There's a photo of me just hiding behind a pole that wide because there was no shelter.
There were shelter, come on, man.
Where? Show the photo.
I was in the shelter. I thought you was like, what are you doing out there?
Waiting for the freaking train. Where's the train?
Yeah, I thought you're game. I was like, why are you out there?
But if we'd have missed that train, we would have screwed up the entire day. We would have missed everything, really, after that.
No, I had contingency. I mean, that's part of the reason as well, just knowing the times, is that you can have contingency.
Yeah. And I think that's a really important point, contingency. Like, it might sound like Kev designs these things incredibly tightly. As we all know from design, don't design anything too tightly because you build in redundancies and problems. You've got to build in fat, and it's obvious, often within those bits of contingency and fat that you get the joyful moments. The sneaky little visit to the pub.
Mm.
Rule 6, document. And this is where we differ a bit, and I think Kev might be right. Like, I try to pump everything into Google Maps, so I just have one app and I click on a pin and all this information pops up. You do a A4 document.
Yeah, I have the PDF.
Yeah.
Which I reference most of the time, but I also have the hard copy printed out, binded, and have it with me.
So
reason being,
weight is an issue with travel, so I find it surprising. So why would you take that weight penalty?
it has saved me a few times.
Yeah?
Yeah. Going to photograph a police station in Spain, and no one was there, and next thing I know, someone tapped me on the shoulder and go, papers. Like, why are you photographing this thing? Then I'd show them the document and say, I'm looking at architecture. You're just one of the many things I'm looking at. And instead of, they treat you as some kind of weird blokes off the street, which I am.
You're a weird bloke.
Yeah. But they look at the document and go, okay, well, he's just seriously looking at architecture. You know, it's just one of the many things on the list. There's architect's name, there's time, there's everything. It's all there. So it looks serious. Yeah.
And so when you get back, you've also got that document, and you give that same document to your accountant, and you say, look, this isn't a holiday, I've been researching, this is professional development.
Definitely.
And CPD can be used for as well as evidence.
Continuing professional development points, as well as tax deductible.
Noisy planes.
Another thing about having the document is that it also helped open doors. You know, just rocking up some security guard or, the people working there going, no, we're not open to the public. You go, please, 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 I came across the world. You show them the document, they go, oh, okay, yeah, we'll make an exception.
I'm Tasmanian, so it's getting hard now. Rule 7, packing is actually one of my favourite bits. You've got to go super light, you've got to be able to move at any time. None of this carting around a huge thing, so 40 litres. Absolute max 40 litres, because then it's basically just a slightly oversized day pack, and you are free. You can go wherever you want, whenever you want.
You can get on the flights without having to check luggage in, which means less likely to lose luggage, and you save the time, and you get to put things into a locker easily. And there are cases I have had that there were no lockers, so you just had to carry it.
Yep.
And that's fine. A wheelie bag is terrible. Anyone who's been to Venice will know.
It sounds hardcore. Seriously, 40 litres is a gift. Ask yourself, when you've travelled overseas, how much stuff did you bring back that didn't even get used? You just took it there, carted it around, and brought it back like a idiot. I've done that before, never again.
I still do it, unfortunately. And, that's an art in itself, which we'll make an episode on that.
Yeah, we'll show you that 40 litre backpack can have everything you need in it. Just got to have some discipline. Rule 8. This is an interesting one because I've found myself, I'm in a point of life where I'm going to, like I see these amazing boutique hotels and go, I'm going to go stay there, that's going to be a real experience. But I do actually kind of miss the old hostel days. How do you do it?
I do a mix.
Oh, okay.
I splurged out on a €400 Zaha Hadid room in Spain. Well, because where else you ever experience that scale Zaha Hadid work? So why not? And then other times go, well, I don't need to. I'm just here to sleep and wash myself, and then I'm off.
So why would you pay for a crazy hotel? Then the other thing about boutique hotels and beautifully designed hotels is you don't actually have to stay there to experience them. You can go have a beer, a cocktail, have a meal. You don't always have to splurge with the €400.
But important thing, regardless, I would try to stay in something special of that particular city, whether it's a certain location, certain neighborhood, certain urban typology, or certain building typology. Like in China, for example, we try to stay in the courtyard houses. That is unique. You can't get that anywhere else.
Rule
9.
9, which is that many minus 1. This is not about being hardcore, this is about being somewhat efficient. Don't go racing around looking at buildings and you're not enjoying your time away. Experience the city you're in, experience the food, make the transitioning between these notable spots as rich as possible. So food, it was bloody brilliant, the travel we've done together.
Well, I sold it to you as architecture by day and beer by night.
Easily pleased.
No, but also, researching food, I mean, that's a whole topic in itself. There's so many videos about local cuisines and whatever, but I think you try to look at each city as part of research as well, to look at what are some of the special food and dishes and things, because I think it does lend a way of understanding the city and the culture and therefore the architecture as well.
And if you're really lucky, you can cross those things over. A really beautifully designed restaurant that is also, got great food. There was in Tokyo, going and visiting an amazing Toyo Ito tower, and then getting up onto the 6th level to this beautiful little cake shop that was there. So I got a bit of Toyo Ito, and I got a bit of yummy little cake.
Yummy Ito.
Yummy Ito.
And entertainment, just go out and enjoy the nightlife.
Oh. Just a couple of deros on the bench, drinking beer on a Monday afternoon. Life's tough, eh? All right, they're Kev's 9 rules. So, what do you reckon? Is that how you travel? Have you got any good advice for us? Because we're always keen to learn. Thanks for watching. Thanks for suggesting this video. Really appreciate it. We actually got outside for once, and we look forward to bringing you some more adventure once this lockdown ends, which is hopefully soon. What are you up to during your lockdown? Leave some comments below. Leave a like and let your friends know that there's a couple of morons talking about stuff on YouTube.
Subscribe.
Notifications.
Subscribe first.
Love you guys.